Imagine a hotel with infinitely many rooms. The rooms are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and they keep going on forever. Infinitely. And it's booked. There's a person in every room. You are the night manager. When someone shows up. And despite the no vacancy sign out front, they explain that they missed their connection and they need a room for the night. Being a resourceful night manager, you realize that you can kindly ask the person in room 1 to move to room 2, person in room 2 to room 3, room 3 to room 4, and so on into infinity, and that leaves room 1 open. Everybody gets a room. Then a family shows up, a couple with 3 kids, and they need 2 rooms because they missed their connection too. That's easy enough. You kindly tell everyone in the hotel to take their room number and add 2. 1 goes to 3, 2 goes to 4, 3 goes to 5, and so on. That leaves rooms 1 and 2 open. Everyone gets a room. Then, because we're already assuming that hotels can be infinite and have countably infinite people in them, there's a bus with a countably infinite number of people in it. They've missed their connection as well and have come looking for a room. Seeing that there's no vacancy, they just, off chance, ask if in this infinite hotel there could possibly be room for them. Well, that's simple too. You tell everyone in the hotel to take their room number and multiply it by 2 and go to that room. 1 goes to 2, 2 goes to 4, 3 goes to 6, and so on. Because how many even numbers are there? Infinite. That leaves all of the odd numbers open. Everyone gets a room. A countably infinite number of trains, each bearing a countably infinite number of buses, each carrying a countably infinite number of people, show up. You can fit all of them in the hotel by various mathematical procedures with rooms to spare, just in case you needed room 6 open. There's always room for one more. German mathematician David Hilbert introduced this idea in a lecture on the infinite in 1924, and that's why we call this the paradox of Hilbert's hotel. It's counterintuitive, but it's not invalid or untrue, as it were. This is how countable infinities behave. And I bring this up for 3 reasons. 1, I'm a nerd, and this and fantasy football are fun for me. 2, I officiate funerals. And a recommended reading for burial is a passage from the Gospel of John. In my Father's house, there are many rooms. Jesus talks about going before his beloved disciples to prepare a place for them, that where he is, they might be also. He's the night manager in his Father's infinite hotel. But more importantly, I bring it up because biology and chemistry, physics and mathematics and science in general often imagine better than anti-intellectual factions and impulses in religion. Who knows what goes on in the human heart? Cardiologists. Do they know everything about what goes on in the human heart? No, but they have ideas. I saw a clip of a TV personality, Bill O'Reilly, debating biologist and vocal atheist Richard Dawkins. In the 21st century, he said, tide goes in, tide goes out. You can't explain that. And I said, that's the dumbest example you could come up with. We know that the moon governs the tides. It's just, God. Oh, you can't speak of the infinite. Yes, you can. Mathematicians have been doing it for at least 100 years. Do we know everything about infinity? No. But we know something. And we should bring that knowledge to bear if we're committed to the human heart, the world around us, and to things like infinity. Because we are. If you look in your Book of Common Prayer, in the back, on page 867, there's the Articles of Religion. You don't need to look now. You can trust me. Article 1 says, there is but one living and true God, everlasting, without body, parts, or passions, of infinite power, wisdom, and goodness. And I said, and if I thought, if I asked a few folks in here if they believed in that God, you'd probably get a nod. Yes, we believe in that God. But do we? As Christians who claim a connection to an infinite God, we Christians can afford to dream bigger than we do. Dream bigger. Dreams, the work of an inspired imagination, are key to taming the petty, the resentful, and the vengeful feelings at work in Jonah, in Jesus' own time and parable, and in each of us. It's time to get into the infinite hotel. Jonah believes in a world where people get what they deserve. The innocent are redeemed and rewarded. The guilty are punished, and punished severely for their infractions. It's for this reason that he refuses God's call to preach to Nineveh. Nineveh is the capital of the Assyrian Empire. It is Israel's ancient enemy, responsible for the destruction of the temple. So you can imagine his surprise when he's told, "Go there and help me save them." He goes in the opposite direction. He's tossed overboard by a ship that is cursed by his presence. He's swallowed by a whale, spat up on the shore, and only then does he go to Nineveh, quite reluctantly, where what he suspected all along happens. God saves Nineveh. And so Jonah exits the city to not be a part of whatever's coming next, hoping that the destruction somehow, someday is coming. How is he supposed to go and be an instrument of God's salvation for God's enemies? Maybe God's enemies aren't your enemies. And that fact made Jonah very angry. Jonah wanted the finite God to come and arbitrate, and the infinite God showed up instead. Jonah suspected that God would change his mind and forgive the people of Nineveh if they were only warned, and sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And God tells him, "Should I not be concerned about Nineveh, that great city? There are more than 120,000 persons who don't know their right hand from their left, and many animals." Because God's generosity, God's grace is not limited to human beings, but to all of creation. Psalm 126 has an opposite parable to Jonah. It begins, "When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dream." Despite being a prophet, Jonah has forgotten what it means to dream. He wants a finite God for finite ends. But he claims a connection to a God who is infinite. And Jesus saw this restricted belief, this warped sense of fairness. In Jesus' community, you had a group who had suffered for the faith, or at least by their own reckoning, had suffered for the faith. They kept the law. They kept loyalty. And yet Jesus comes along, and you've got successive groups of tax collectors, prostitutes, Romans, Gentiles, unworthies, deplorables, elitists, and traitors who are getting the same thing. A connection to God. Wait, we suffer the whole day long and we get the same thing as the people who just showed up? That's not fair. That's not right. We built this church, or my grandparents did. They get the same thing as us. Somewhere, someone is getting a second chance. And there's something in us that says, they don't deserve it. Someone out there is getting power and attention and wealth and status that they're not worthy of. And that has to stop. God's answer is strange. Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last the same as I give to you. The infinite. The reward, the connection is infinite. There is one, but one living and true God, everlasting without body parts or fashions, of infinite power, wisdom, and goodness. You have access to infinite power, wisdom, and goodness, and it's time we started imagining just what that's like. Because if it's true, and we seem to think it is because we stuck it in this book, then there's enough for everyone to have a share in infinity. So you can spare yourself the anger and the rage. You can afford to stay in the city with its people redeemed and give yourself the second chance you would deny other people. I'll say that again because I need to hear it. Give yourself the second chance you would deny other people. There is always room for one more with an infinite God. The people of God, Jesus saw, had stopped dreaming. And so they were fighting over their share of what they thought was left. But there's always room in an infinite hotel. Among many things, Jesus, in sharing our human nature, showed us the divine. Your image of God is too small, Jesus told us. You're complaining because you think you're getting less. You're getting the infinite. And though some infinities are bigger than others, does it really matter to you? Are you envious because I'm generous? The last will be first, and the first will be last. Finite religion fills finite churches with finite people. We can have an infinite faith in infinite rooms filled with infinite people. So let's reconnect with this infinite God of ours. I bring him up for 3 reasons. 1, because it's fun. And 2, there's always room with this God. And 3, because God is so much greater than me and my ideas about God. We, as Christians, through Jesus Christ, are free to dream bigger, to dream infinite, to dream the eternal. Recall the Caliph. Grant us, Lord, not to be anxious about earthly things, but to love things heavenly. And even now, while we're placed among things that are passing away, to hold fast to those that will endure. So let's ease our anxious hold on things that as they are. They're passing away. We can afford to let them go. Let's instead hold on as we can to our portion of the infinite, our share in grace, our share in love that endures all things. Because here, it is a mathematical certainty that there is a guest in every room. It's not the same thing as saying no more guests can be accommodated. In a hotel with infinitely many rooms, there are counterintuitive but not illogical results. There's always room for one more chance, one more person. There's always room for infinity. You may have heard and you may think that the heaven is a place of God's judgment, the pearly gates where people get their comeuppance. And you may have heard, you may think that heaven is the promised land, some enlightened political condition, some more spiritual state of being. Dream bigger. For I say unto you, the kingdom of heaven is like a hotel with infinitely many rooms. Imagine a hotel with infinitely many rooms.